good. On Wilcox, we can't sign Delap on his own. How we doing? How we doing? Welcome everybody. How are we? How we doing? Good afternoon, Gary P, Aaron, Naveen. How we going, guys? How are you today? What do you think? What are you thinking today? What are you thinking today? How is it? Hello, Simon. Thank you again for being members, you guys, all of you. Daniel, CB, Greg, Noah, Sean, IR, Bruno Fernandes, Riley, 50, Sammy, Matthew, Lindelof against Sun. It's Gyover. Can a UK user become a member? I'm sure there's a bunch of UK users in here. Cunha train has left the station. That's right, Nerd 22. Martin, Anonymous, Mango, Ray Star, RS, seriously. Abdul Ziad, thank you all for being here. Alessandro, Sir M. Mesmer, the Red Football, Stu Cantona, Zach, Jeff. Third time today. I appreciate you following all of everything I'm doing. Yeah, there's plenty of UK members. Tell me the Mike Malone tea. I'll just say that was absolute chaos. Completely unexpected. I mean, the guy had just like planned to be here for a long time. Very unexpected by him. Big fight with some people in the executive office between him and them. Past your bedtime, Emma, Tiff, Russell, Benjamin, Britannic, Mike, Hamza, Jake, John, Gibbs, Danny, Luciano, Jason. How we doing? You watch all my videos. You're a big fan. Rasmus Rimpila. Thank you. I appreciate you all. Anyway, how are we today, guys? How we doing? Thank you all for being here. How are we feeling? 2 more days. Less than 48 hours till the game. 46 hours. 46 hours. My nerves are shot on this, man. I'm not going to lie to you. Hang on, my sound might be a little low. There we are. Yep. There we go. That should be better. My nerves are absolutely shot over this right now. I can't handle it. I'm scared. I'm upset. I'm nervous. I'm terrified. Very, very scared. Very scared. I get the impression from like Garnacho's posts, from Mason Mount's word, I get the impression that both Garnacho and Mount are going to start, which is what I want. I get the impression. I think. But I guess we'll see. Look, logically, I think we're going to, I still think we're going to win, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I was scared. I do want to talk about a few things today. I do have a few subjects to discuss with you guys today. Number one is, of course, Sammy Senkem. Welcome to the Pro Muppet. Thank you for joining. The United vid they posted was great. It was exciting, but every time I think about it, I get more scared. But I do have a few things to discuss. I want to talk about, we were talking a lot about Gyökeres yesterday, and there's stories today. I'll break them down a little bit because I think there's a little bit of, I'm not 100% on these stories, okay? Sometimes I feel what happens, and you can say that I'm think too bigly of myself, but I don't. But I'm quite sure this does happen sometimes. Sometimes what happens is I'll start talking about something and put things a certain way, and then soon after some articles come out that are slightly dubious, you know? Like yesterday, we spent in that evening stream, we spent a while talking about how, from my side, that Amorim was putting pressure on the board, on Wilcox, of course, bigly isn't a word. It's a you know. Anyway, that Amorim was putting pressure on the board and such, and then you get some articles today about how Wilcox wants to sign Delap and he wants Gyökeres, and they're fighting over it. I don't know about that one, Chief. I don't know that I don't think it's like that. I don't think it works that way. But I will talk about that in a minute. Talk about Gyökeres. We'll talk about Delap. Because Delap obviously still a solid target. Athletic coming out with a big story on there. Talk about who's healthy for the final. I've been telling you for the last week or so that I think Zirkzee's going to make it. Big credit here to Sully, who is a good friend. We talk about these things, for getting that on. He is very likely to make the bench. That is good. We want to talk about that. Dominic Tannenbaum, AO, James, your hair's looking great. Amorim, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. But I still have some opinions about Delap and that whole situation. Chelsea, London, Delap misses will make the choice. Does he have a misses? I don't know anything about him. But, you know, the fact that Delap is still making that choice, and Chelsea specifically mentioned, which I've said for some time, big threat, Chelsea, to us regardless. Is Sully reliable? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Not the Amorim. Zirkzee won't be sharp. He won't start. Don't worry about that. But if he can be there, yes, Sully's good. Sully's good. We've spoken about a lot of stuff. Sully's good. I promise you that. I promise you he is worth the follow. Sully is a good dude. So yeah. Got a few things to discuss, no doubt about that. While you're here, come in, smash the like button, beat the shit out of your keyboard, your monitor, destroy it, slam your face into it. Whatever it takes, get those likes up there. Hey, let's go. I think that if Zirkzee plays, he's going to be a game changer for us. I think so, off the bench as well. He's been working hard. Good evening, Marcus. Terry, James, for the last big fantasy competition, the first prize was an Amon shirt. Is there any truth in the rumor that first prize on Wednesday's a Rasmus shirt? We're not going to play Wednesday. They asked me if we wanted to do another competition for Wednesday. And I said no, because I felt too nervous about the game. You know what I mean? I don't want to run a competition during the game. I don't want to think about anything else. I don't have the attention for it. Looks like your membership expired today, Bruno Fernandes, I guess. Evening, Patrick, Alex, good old-fashioned head desk, exactly. But yeah, we'll talk about a few things. And then I'm going to, because this is very much my thing, I'm going to do a video later that I'll make on United's midfield selections backed up with some numbers, but I will share you some of the numbers in this video, in this live, because nothing makes me happier than pissing people off a little bit. Hold on a second. Nothing makes me happier than disagreeing with everybody on certain things. And if I'm wrong, great. But if I'm right, then even better. Vardy or Welbeck for a year, what do you say? Yes, give me. I'd rather have him as a backup. But the reason I did that, the reason I like doing that, and I might start with it because it's a little bit more fun to do it, is because I think, in my opinion, that we've gone way too far as a club, as fans, as people, as a community in the football space. I think we've gone way too far into analyzing things, to the point where I feel like it just becomes a bit ridiculous. And I was talking about that yesterday with Delap and Gyökeres and stuff, where I was saying, look, you get 53 goals versus 12 goals, and you've got people explaining left and right why Delap is the better player. And I start to look at it, and I'm just like, what? What? You know, how can you you know, how can you, like, come on, man, like, but it gets, because we start breaking it down where I think people are trying to, you know, break science down humans. I understand I have a YouTube channel analyzing stuff, but what I'm talking about is people are trying to break down humans, to the point where, you're like, you have to like, how do I put it? Where you're trying to predict behavior that much. I saw a comp of Gyökeres missing headers. Now ask yourself, how many headers has Delap scored? Because the answer is also 0. And it's like I think that people just want to predict so heavily on these types of things, and it makes it like, I don't know, man. Like I said yesterday, there's just the mental aspect of it. There's just a mental aspect of it. At some point, you got to step back and say, the best athletes just make things happen. I mean, Messi and Ronaldo are the two best players of the last 20 years, right? Probably. They couldn't be more different. So how can you take them and predict who's going to be the best footballer? They couldn't be more different. They're like the exact opposite in terms of profile, in terms of skill set, in terms of everything. They couldn't be more different. And yet, so what? They rise to the top because I think the mental side is everything. There's winners and there's losers in life. And then there's in betweens where there's winners and there's extra winners. And that's just how I see it sometimes. I think mentality is everything. Do I think Gyökeres and Delap are similar? I think they do have a similar skill sets, but one managed to get 53 goals this season and one managed to get 12. And I think you have to look at that and go, there's a reason still for that. And it's not just because of Portugal or the Premier League. But regardless, I just enjoy the discussion. Because as usual, I tend to find that, I don't know. I tend to automatically go against the grain first because I usually think that like the bulk of people leaning one way probably means they're wrong, but that's just me. But we'll get to the striker thing. The first piece of news that actually came out this morning, and what led me to this was about Ederson. Okay, and it says there's been new contacts and there will be others after the Europa League final. United has the advantage of having moved before Manchester City and Juventus, but agreements are needed in Atalanta, who are asking for a minimum of 60 million. And when the stories keep coming out about Ederson, no, I'm not a wisdom in crowds guy. Quite the opposite. I think that people together are stupid and dangerous in general. Again, myself always included. Usually I wouldn't read too much into Padula, Bradley, except he's right. And Ederson is a top target for us. And Padula had it just slightly before Fabrizio not long ago on mentioning it. Ederson is a very good player, but a lot of people are already writing him off as a bad player, in my opinion. They're wrong, but I think a lot of people are already writing him off as someone that doesn't help us, that doesn't fit, that doesn't make sense for our team. I get it. Their opinions. I'm going to go against the grain on that and say that there's a reason why when I made the midfield video 2 months ago now, 2.5 months ago now, 3 months ago now, I put Ederson at number 1 because he's nothing like Ugarte. He's the opposite of Ugarte. That's why I'm saying maybe I don't think you have it right, man, because he's not Ugarte. He's actually the perfect partner for Ugarte. And that's why I had him at number 1 on my list about 2 months ago. Because profile-wise, I knew United had been following him. And for an Amorim team, he's actually perfect for a partner. He's actually perfect. He's exactly what Amorim would pick to partner Ugarte. Let's say it was somebody else. What if it was Paulinho? What if it was Yolmand? It doesn't matter. Whatever 6 Amorim has had, Ederson is the right partner for that. Okay, they're not the same. Ederson is more like his Morita that he was using at Sporting. Ederson is an attacking 8, similar to what we would have wanted. I know I shot you down 6 months ago about Ederson, and it was because I think he was very expensive, and I didn't know what the view would be at the time. You know what I mean? And but Ederson is a very good player that United have been tracking for some times, and as others have put it, he'd be kind of like a dream midfielder for Amorim in this project. It's going to get a lot of disagreement because, again, people want different things. People want different things in their midfield. But realistically, I think that to get the money to get him, we have to get into Champions League as well. But I think people are underrating what Ederson does or misunderstanding his role, and maybe still misunderstanding what Amorim wants. For me, what makes a lot of sense is an Ederson-Ugarte pairing, and then you upgrade on Casemiro later, unless he leaves the season, to get another 6. Maybe next year, then you have a Wharton-Ederson pairing. It's the same balance that works. That would work for the same midfield. Jason says, you think he will risk Yoro and Joshua after the latest Sully updates? Really worried for Wednesday love from Greece. I think that Zirkzee has a much better chance, like he said there. But it's more risky. It's more risky for Yoro. I don't think Zirkzee will start, though, either way. I don't think Zirkzee will start there. Long-term, Ederson and Wharton, to me, would be an amazing midfield. But I don't think Wharton is obtainable this season. I don't think he is. He's going to be 80, 90, 100 million. And I think that's going to be, an issue. But what I want to say is, going back to this, I've got something to show you. Because I ran some numbers here, all right? I ran some numbers here, and it's very surprising, the truth versus the narratives out there. The combination of Casemiro Ugarte has 7 wins in 12, averages 2.25 goals per game, and 1.08 goals against in 12 games. That's a 56% win rate and an 8% loss rate when they play together. The only loss was 1-0 against Forest. All right. The Casemiro Bruno one only has a 33% win rate. The only wins were actually Pilsen and Sociedad, leg 2 or whatever it was. I went through all of them. It's a mixture. Like it's certainly a mixture. There's like 4 wins in Europe, and then like 2 in the Premier League and 1 in an FA Cup or something like that. Yeah, you have eyes, except you can't see what's right in front of you when I'm presenting you numbers. This is not better. It was the same thing. It's the same competition. 1 win. Again, the only wins for this combo also came in Europe. So don't tell me it's suddenly magically better, because the losses and the draws also came against Premier League teams. Okay. Ugarte and Bruno actually has the best win rate. It's 60%. But it's much tighter performance-wise. They concede more goals and score a few less. But it still has worked okay. Ugarte and Mainu has been bad. Casemiro and Mainu has actually been okay, but they've only played twice, so we don't really know. And then anyone with Eriksen has been terrible. Anybody playing in the same team with Christian Eriksen, we haven't won a game. 0 wins in 5, and we concede twice as many as we score. Doesn't matter. Mainu, Casemiro, Bruno, Ugarte, whoever plays with Christian Eriksen loses. Sorry. It's just the reality of it. If Eriksen starts, it's a loss. Let's just put it that way, all right? Unfortunately, that's just the state he's in his career, but that's probably not a surprise. Now, these numbers are only since Ten Hag was sacked, by the way, just to be clear. These are only since Ten Hag was sacked. So there's probably numbers before that. I don't know. Different combinations were used before that. It doesn't really matter to me because it was a different setup and a different midfield. But this is the truth, right? So both of the best combinations, 13 wins, have come with Ugarte in the team compared to very few without him, but it is what it is. Johannes T, thank you for joining the Pro Muppet. Appreciate you very much. Regardless, I think what it more speaks to is a combination of things. a combination of what we need to do to have a good midfield and what a good midfield looks like. What a good midfield looks like. Yeah, Ruud switched to Casemiro and Ugarte, and it worked quite well, actually, yes. It did include, I think, one or two wins under Ruud as well. So, yeah, it did include that. But being fair here, like, it counts individual games. So, like, one of the Lyon games is a draw in there as well. So they have won quite a number of games. It doesn't really matter who finished the game because the setup for 60, 70 minutes of grinding a team down, of all of that, affects how the game plays for the last 30 to 40 minutes as well. It's not like you can separate them. The beginning of the game affects the end of the game, how you work with them. But I think what it tells you is that, look, it's work rate, right? It's work rate. It's what works. It's what works together. This is going to get, this is what's going to get the best result. So how could you improve upon that? And the Casemiro Ugarte midfield means you have two players who can defend. Even though Casemiro's legs are not quite there, he can defend. He can sit a little bit more. He can work together with Ugarte. And they can cover ground a bit more. They can defend, and there's a bit of both in there. So it's like, what can you do to improve upon that is the question. It doesn't say it's good enough. It says, what can you do to improve upon that in general? So I think it's telling, though, in that. It's interesting that when Bruno has started deeper, we've actually scored fewer goals because people kept running with that too, and I'm just saying it's never been the case. We score more goals when Bruno plays as a forward, like he does in these games. He does, and so that's why I think he'll definitely be starting as a forward in the final as well. But were we losing when Ugarte came off in any of those games? I mean, you can look, but let me think about that for a second. Were we losing? No for Lyon. No for Bilbao. No for No, I don't think we were. We may have been drawing in one. A lot of the games when Ugarte came off was like we were already losing or drawing, and we ended up still losing or drawing. Like, I know we've done that where we've subbed off Ugarte to chase the game, but it hasn't actually worked. That's the thing. Like, how many late winners do we have? None. The only time we had a late winner was against Lyon, and when Ugarte came off, it was 2-2. We haven't actually had late winners. I'm trying to think if we've had any late winners. Bilbao home leg. Yeah, that one, but yes, that is correct. As an individual game, that would be one where we were losing, but we were up 3-1 on aggregate at the time. So not exactly the same situation. But yeah, on an individual basis, you're right. That's the only game he came off when we were losing. We ended up scoring more goals, but we were up 3-1 on aggregate when he came off still. So losing, winning, not totally sure. I didn't include every combo. There was a couple games that Collier played with Bruno here. We were not losing when Ugarte came off against Lyon. We were even from what I remember, 2-2. Yeah. Can I do this for Premier League only? It's not going to tell you anything because, okay, I can tell you the truth of it, right? If it was Premier League only, it'd be like 3 wins, 0 wins. So I don't know what to tell you because the only time Casemiro and Bruno have won together was Pilsen and Sociedad at home. Those are the only 2 games that Casemiro and Bruno have actually won together, despite the narrative that they were so much better as a combination. They've not won a single game in the Premier League together or against a Premier League team together. They've had 2 draws and 2 losses against Premier League teams. So that's 0.5 points per game for Casemiro and Bruno against Premier League teams. That's the truth. Yeah, in the pivot. This is all in the pivot. This is all teams together in the pivot. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's just the stats. It's just the stats. It's just the reality of what it is, whether you like it, don't like it, all of that. And it doesn't mean it's perfect. It just means it has factually worked better. And hopefully we can just do better with that. Hopefully it tells us what we need. But I think the point is hard work wins, right? Out of possession work wins. We need more hard work in the midfield. Hard runners. In a way, Casemiro and Ugarte together plays a lot like how it would be with Ederson, where Ugarte does play more like Ederson, where he gets forward, gets involved in the attack, presses, all of that kind of stuff, everything. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, it is what it is there. Yeah. So anyway, I just think it's an interesting point. I think it's something worth mentioning. And I think it's something worth thinking about because it matters. It matters as to where we want to build and what they're probably thinking. For Amorim's system to work, it needs hard work in the midfield. It just does. And when we look at it, the only games we've won in 2 months have been Casemiro and Ugarte together. In fact, I don't think we've won a game without them together since February. I could be wrong about that. I don't remember what our last win was. Sociedad, I guess. Sociedad at home was the last time we won without them together. We have not won a single game with them together. They also, by the way, have not started together in a single Premier League game since then, since March. Simply because Casemiro can't play 2 games a week. They've been rotating on every weekend back and forth like this so that they play midweek together and then they alternate in the Premier League. And then they play midweek together and then they alternate in the Premier League. So yeah, that's just an interesting one on that. According to CIES Football, Ugarte is among the top 5 midfielders in Europe's top 5 leagues for distance covered out of possession. Yeah, it matters. Do not worry about the defensive side of Ugarte and Ederson if opponent beats the press. No. I mean, look, we got to get better. We need to be able to play a higher line than we do to back it up and things like that for sure. I think that's good. I think we need to do that. We won 4-0 with Casemiro and Bruno against Everton, I think. I think you're actually right, and I think that I have one of them. That was one. You are right about that. That was the one win that they had. I might have mistaken when I said that they wouldn't have any win in the Premier League. I think they had one. But James Casemiro was being found out in the Premier League. Right. So he succeeded with having extra legs with him. But look, whatever the opinion, that was Casemiro Mainu? Was it? I don't remember. Maybe it was. You know what? I think you're right. It was. Because that's why the Casemiro Mainu stats look really good. Yeah, that's why the Casemiro Mainu stats look really good. They have like 2.5 goals per game because they played 2 games. We won 4-0 and we drew 1-1. And so it looks really good. Bruno was a 10. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, they've not won a game as in the pivot as a partnership in the Premier League or against a Premier League team at all. But look, regardless of opinion, the reality is that here it's this right here, right here. The reality is this is what Ruben Amorim wants from his midfield is 2 hard runners, 2 hard workers, and Ederson fits into that really well from a profile standpoint. It's what he wants. That's what he wants to bring in. That's what he has. So we'll see. I think Ederson is a serious target. I think he's somebody that if we get into Champions League that we could go for. I also think Ederson is a bit system agnostic because if you were to switch to a manager who is playing in a pivot, a 4-2-3-1, you would also still play Ederson and Ugarte together. For a different manager, you could play that. If you were to switch to a 3, Ugarte, Ederson, and Mainu, those would make good combos too. There's a lot of combos you could make. I think Ederson is a great box-to-box attacking 8, which fits a lot of systems. I don't think it's even particularly that specific, but it is what he would want in this case, for sure. So I think that's the reality of it. And again, if you compare it to his teams at Sporting, it is like Morita in terms of how he plays. That's what he's looking for. You reckon this will be an exciting window? Wharton is great at ball progression, passing, or beating the press. Yes, and I would ideally sign him as that guy anyway. No matter what, in the long term, I would love to. Yeah, I do reckon it'll be an exciting window. Look, the fact is, if we don't get Champions League, we're going to have to sell like crazy to move on beyond our main targets. But let's talk about some more main targets here. Let's talk about Liam Delap. Obviously, this from Laurie today saying United held face-to-face talks with Liam Delap, granted permission by Ipswich Delap to discuss transfer with all suitors, including Chelsea, before making call. United also advancing move for Cunha. So if we look at that on Liam Delap, essentially, obviously, we're lining up Liam Delap. He might be the most likely transfer. I mean, second, obviously, to Cunha. After Cunha is done, Delap might be the guy. And the fact of the matter is, I think that from the view that I have and from what I've heard, Delap is probably one we can get regardless of Champions League. That's how it feels. Is there still competition? Are we still worried about Chelsea? Yes, for sure. But I believe we could get Delap without Champions League, and I believe that's what the club feel as well. I think it's still a good signing in that respect. If we don't get Champions League and we can't get Gyökeres, who we'll talk about in a second, should we sign Delap? 100%. Don't get me wrong, right? Like I did a whole thing yesterday talking about why, I think Gyökeres is better and all of that. And I've said, 53 goals versus 12 and all that kind of stuff, right? For sure. But he's still a big improvement for 30 million. He's still a big improvement for 30 million on Rasmus Højlund. Let's be real. Okay. He's still a massive improvement. He just is. And we will be a better team with Liam Delap in it versus Højlund. So don't get me wrong. I'm not going to shit on the transfer. I'm not going to play it down. I'm not going to say it's a failure. I'm not going to say he's a bad player. I'm not going to hate again on him or anything like that. He's a good footballer for 30 million who's a big improvement on what we have. That's for sure. Wharton won't be leaving anytime soon. No, he will not. How about we win on Wednesday and sign both? Well, we can talk about that. I don't think we'll sign both anyway, but because I don't think you can convince them. Either one of Delap or Gyökeres is going to want to be the guy to join, right? You can't get both. I'm sorry, guys, you're not getting both because you're not getting convincing both. One of them wants to be the guy. We're not going to sell Delap on joining us over Chelsea to be Gyökeres' backup. It's not happening. There's player involvement here. I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think he'd be a secondary striker at Chelsea, and I don't think that he'll join them if he was to be a secondary striker at Chelsea, which is why he'd probably consider joining us, and why we could probably potentially be the front runners is maybe the lack of competition. Because when you look at United right now, you have no chance of not starting if you walked into United's midfield. Danny Welbeck could come back and be our starter. Jamie Vardy could come back and be our starter. Not come back, but Jamie Vardy could come in and be our starter, That's the level that we have at the moment. Okay. So, it's all good. But look, the simplicity of it. Let's move to the next. Let's move to the Gyökeres part, so then we can contextualize all of this discussion, because I spoke about this yesterday as well. In terms of the details, this from Christopher Michel. Unlike other players such as Victor Gyökeres, Cunha. Anyway, Cunha done. I mean, we talked about this yesterday. I told you there's no problems. It's going to happen. We'll speak again about that in a minute. But he says, on Gyökeres, he did not choose MUFC yet, but the club only has a chance at all if he wins Europa League and gets into the Champions League. So obviously, this is a factor. This is a factor in this. And as I was saying yesterday, there's been a push from Ruben Amorim that we need more. That we want more. And Fabrizio has mentioned, Gyökeres, and we were talking about this in yesterday's video, that we need more. We want more. We need it to be bigger. We cannot, just go for value. We cannot do the minimum. We need to do more. And so I think that in his mind, he would want us to spend more, not just go for value, but get the better player. In his mind, that's Viktor Gyökeres, and I think that that's fair. That Viktor Gyökeres is not is a better player, than Liam Delap. I think that that's totally true, and I think that basically, if you want to look at it, but though the reality is we have to win Wednesday to get Gyökeres to have a chance. So, and again, as I was saying yesterday, both strikers, Delap and Gyökeres, are going to want to make a decision fast, quick, soon, early, right? Liam Delap is still looking at people. Arsenal are strongly in for Gyökeres, but as we've heard, there's a bit of maybe discord between Arsenal from Berta and fuck's the guy's name? Arteta, about who to get, who's the right striker and all of that. And I think it's leaving the door open, frankly, for us, because it means they can't finalize the deal right now, even though they should be. If Arsenal were smart, they should be signing their striker today. Should they not? They should get it done today. If they want Gyökeres, they should be wrapping it up immediately. What I believe will happen, based on everything, is come Wednesday, if we lose, we try to trigger Delap's release clause immediately and get the deal done. Same as Cunha, so that it's in the door. Because if we lose and we miss on Delap, then we're really in trouble. Then we are really in trouble. But if we win on Wednesday, then I think we will throw a bid in for Gyökeres pretty much right away. I think we will. I think we will throw a bid in for Gyökeres pretty quickly. I think we will. I think we'll say, look, you've got this agreement to leave for 55 million euros, whatever it is. Fabrizio's mentioned an exact number. I think we put that number in and say, we need to know now. Will you join us to be our number one? And if not, we move on to Delap, and we do it very quickly, very quietly, very certainly, and we get one done. Because I think Delap for sure joins us if we win as well. I think Delap for sure joins us if we win as well, right? So we need to get one, no matter what. We need to get one. We do. We need to get one. Yeah. Because look, we have to have that ready. I don't think we will miss on Delap if we miss out on Champions League. I think we can get him from everything I've heard. And from Lauri's, look, obviously he's still making his decisions. I was leaning earlier towards Chelsea. I'm leaning more towards that United could get him. Just from everything recently, even if we miss on Champions League, I think we've presented a good case, and I think that he would probably want to join us. But I think we can get Gyökeres if we win Wednesday. Then we could talk about another 10 after that, which will probably require a sale of a significant player to move forward on all of that. Okay. United wouldn't leak that. I don't think it works that way. I don't think that's true at all, because if you read the wording, it's very non-committal. I'm not going to lie. Like, I just want you to know for a second. Like, let's just look at this article real quickly, because I think you reading into it too much. Nothing says he favors us. Nothing says he would choose us. Nothing says he's been convinced. Nothing says he's excited by the prospect of joining United. The wording on this is very careful not to, get hopes up. While on Cunha, it basically says it's a done deal. So, no, I think you'd be reading too much into it to say, well, because we have that story, it means Delap's choosing us. I do think we have a good shot at Delap, and I do think we're going to end up with one of Delap or Gyökeres. That's my opinion. So it's fine. But look, a lot is riding on Wednesday. Do I think that it is a fight? Wilcox wants Delap, Amorim wants Gyökeres. No, I don't think that's true. I don't think it's like that. I don't think presenting it that way would be accurate at all. They work together on the needs. Ruben Amorim expresses what he wants, and maybe that he feels we need more. Delap is viewed as a very good value for money signing, a player who improves us, who's attainable, who we can get, and who has potential. But he's also only 30 million, so it makes a lot more. It makes sense as a deal. The question is, how much budget do we push forward to the striker? And I think that they'll back Ruben Amorim based on the last week of discussion that I've had, with a top striker, with a higher striker target, a more expensive, more productive striker target, if we can. But that means we need finances. And I don't think that this is like, if we win Champions League and Gyökeres is willing to join us, I do not believe that Wilcox would say, oh, we're going to get him over Delap because I want him more when you want Gyökeres more. I don't think it's like that. I don't think it's like that. I think it's genuinely, if we can get Gyökeres, then we will. And if we can't, then we won't. It's pretty much that simple. That's the way I see it from my view, from everything I've heard. But like, that's normal. It's just planning. It's just planning. Look, 3 months ago, we were talking about Quenda, right? Kenda, and then we lost out on Quenda overnight. Like, boom, gone to Chelsea. And I said, what I've heard when we missed out on Quenda is that we were going to move that budget up front instead of going for another right wing back. And then we decided to go for two forwards. We suddenly have the money for two forwards. We were going to get a right wing back and a striker. When we missed out on Quenda, we said, all right, we're going to get Cunha and a striker. We changed we moved our priorities. They have the ability to operate under different circumstances. They have the ability to be agile. You don't have to have, like, if we don't get this player, it's a disaster. You have to have good plans for all circumstances. Delap is maybe more likely than Gyökeres right now. Probably more likely than Gyökeres right now. He's probably, in that respect, all things considered, the more favored target in that way, because he's more attainable, he's more doable, he's more purchasable. There's less risk with it. But if we can get Gyökeres, then I think we will. If we can. But we'll have to win Wednesday first, and we don't know that yet. So they have to have Delap ready. They have to have it lined up. Because even if we win, we're not certain yet. There's uncertainties there on Gyökeres. So let's just let it be what will be on this. I don't think we have to panic. I don't think we have to freak out about it. If we win, I think we've got a good shot at him. If we don't, and we can get Delap, or if we win and we get Delap, cool. I'm happy. I'm fine. I'd rather we go bigger, but what will be. I don't think we're not trying. Let's put it that way. I don't think we're going to... I thought before we wouldn't go for Gyökeres, but they've more prioritized it as an option they want to try. They want to see if they can get him, and we may have a chance at him. Again, if you remember, I said after Lyon, when we beat them, I said, look, they're going to start planning now for those Champions League targets and seeing if they could happen. And since then, there's been a lot of other mentions of Gyökeres, and I don't think that's an accident, and I think that the pressure Amorim's put on is meaningful. So, I'm good with it. Let's see what happens. I don't think we have to, like, panic. If we win Europa League and we get into Champions League, then we've got a shot. If not, fine. Let's see what happens. Let's just see what happens. It's still a big upgrade to me either way, and I think we'll do better and better. We still need other positions. We still need other positions as well. You found Evil Owens YouTube. Nasty work. Otherwise, obviously, there is the 1 second, sorry. One moment. Anyway, talk about Cunha now. We'll talk about other targets in a minute, and then we can talk about Cunha. We'll talk about other targets, but we'll talk about Cunha first. So obviously Fabrizio this morning said, his exclusive United are closing on Matheus Cunha. We're accepted the project, personal terms closed, almost done, everything's getting sorted, blah, blah, blah. Great, awesome stuff. The important thing here is to note that I just wanted to point out that you don't have to have too much club-to-club contact for deals to get done, because I think people were still thinking about that. We haven't talked to Wolves yet. We haven't made an approach to Wolves yet. How can this be close? You don't need much contact between them. A lot of time, agents are working as the intermediaries. They're bringing the details, the understanding of it. United know what is needed to sign Cunha. There's a release clause that, per Laurie and I think others maybe, that it's payable in 3 installments anyway. So we kind of know what it would take. We can pay that, or we can pay a tiny bit more and spread it out over 4 or 5 installments. Not a big deal. But United are fine on this. Does not believe there to be any issue on that front once they agree personal terms, which are on the cusp of being agreed. There were discussions today, which I think is the point on why Fabrizio is saying it today. There were discussions today about it. And so I think this is virtually done, and I believe strongly that by next week, it'll all be a done deal. And this is like a 99% transfer. I think we can consider it our first signing of the summer. I think it's at that level. At that point, there's no doubt in my mind, or I think in reality, that there's anything wrong with this deal. It's all happening. And so Cunha seems like it's the first signing of summer. Once we get an official "here we go" from Fabrizio, which I believe he'll be first on, then we can talk about it a bit more. But I think we're good. I saw it as kind of done weeks ago too, as well. Yeah, because it's been at that level. Look, he wants to join us. It's a release clause. We've got the money for it. Now the contract's almost done. There's been no problem. The other 2 priorities are another 10 and a midfielder, but I think another midfielder would come first in the market. That's why, again, the Ederson links. If we get Champions League, we probably can probably buy a midfielder. We can probably just go for another midfielder to replace Eriksen leaving. We probably, even with Champions League, need to sell to get another 10, which we want, to get another forward, but we probably need to sell just to make space. Because if you look at the squad, we would have striker, Zirkzee, Højlund, Cunha, Bruno, Mount, Mainu, Garnacho. I mean, that's 8 players for 3 positions. It's too much. We do need to sell somebody before we add another one to that. We may even need to sell or loan 2 players before we add something to that. Whereas in the midfield, we're already short. The point on that comparison of points gained and wins and things like that on the midfield combinations was, even if we don't count Mainu as a 10 and we count as a midfielder, fine, we still have 7, and that's not counting as Ahmad can even play in there, which he does sometimes. But we definitely want another forward, another winger type, another somebody who can take a man on, who can do all of that. It becomes real necessary. So I think that's when you're looking at Mbeumo, when you're looking at Mastantuono. But I think that for Mbeumo, we have to sell somebody significant to buy him. For Mastantuono, probably the same goes. Maddie Duncan says, we've been looking at Mo Leicester. Looks quality. I don't know about that one. I heard he's a bit touchy. We've already had a few of those. We don't need more. I think that the midfielder, I think, is one where if we have the money from winning Europa and getting into the Champions League, we're gonna try to make a signing anyways. We're probably gonna have we're gonna want somebody anyway, right, to come into the midfield, and so we'll keep up with that. But the extra number 10 is definitely a factor, somebody that we can think about. For sure, but we're gonna need to make sales for that to happen. But look, I'm quite excited. And then there's the keeper. We've talked about the keeper many times. Like I said, we still want to sign a keeper. We want a keeper. We've been looking at keepers all season. We want a keeper to compete with Onana, but the problem is it's going to be hard to move Onana on. Be easier to move by India and spend the money. Radius, Evil Owen, racist. Are your predictions including sales loans of Rashi, Anthony, and Sancho? And is Cunha locked? Cunha's happening, okay? Yeah, I think Rashi, Anthony, and Sancho will all leave personally. But you never know. Simic's football just got in. If Wilcox wants Delap and Ruben Amorim wants Gyokeres, if we get Delap and lose due to lack of goals, then Wilcox should be the one getting sacked. Well, look, that's the truth, right? Now, I was just explaining before this, I don't think it's that tense. Like, I don't think it's really that way. I think the point is that from a footballing standpoint, when you have to factor budget in, things like that, Delap is really highly rated by Wilcox and such, right? I think he's really highly rated. And he's good value for money. The point is more, I think Amorim thinks we may need to be more ambitious with our spending there. And so, you know, and I think, but I do think they'll back him. If we can get Gyökeres, I think they'll get Gyökeres. That's what I think today. That's what I believe firmly. If they can convince Gyökeres, meaning we have to win Wednesday, and then we have to convince him, then we'll get him, right? But if not, then it's fair enough to get Delap at that point in time. And so I don't think it's a clash. I think it's more like, I don't know. We probably can't get Gyökeres otherwise anyway. So what's the difference, right? But you're not wrong. Look, if they really rate Delap and we get Delap and he only gets 10 goals and we're still in 10th because we have a striker who wants 10 goals, then it's on Wilcox, not on Amorim, because they should have been more ambitious about who they went for at that point in time. I do think that matters, and I think that's why there's always context in the signings and what happens next season. But look, you don't want to, look, I would say this. If it was just Amorim wanting Gyökeres and he wasn't highly rated by the club, they shouldn't go for him. Because we've done that before. We've made those mistakes before. But that's not how it is, okay? I want to make that really, really clear. That's not how it is, okay? They're not going to sign someone for excess money simply because the manager likes him. It is very different to like the Anthony thing where the club looked at Anthony and said, no thanks, he's 20 million player, we're not really interested in him, and then they pushed back because of Ten Hag and signed him. They wouldn't have signed him otherwise. The club liked Gyökeres. Everybody likes Gyökeres. He's a top-rated striker for a reason, for a good price. A lot of clubs want him. United like him. It's the right reason still that we would want him. So it's more about can we get him or not. But otherwise, we also still have a very good alternative in Liam Delap that I do think is again still a huge improvement, and I have no doubt in my mind, you know, that he is a huge improvement on what we've had, for sure. Hold on one second. I just want to listen to something that was just sent to me. Oh, good. Okay. Anyway, so I think it's okay, but I don't like when it's like let's put it this way. Last year there was a serious disagreement about the midfield, right? And about like McTominay and Amrabat and things like that, to the point where he didn't even want him. Would Amorim take Delap? Does he like Delap? Yes, he would sign Delap. He would absolutely take Delap. You know, it's very different. He takes Delap, he's starting up front for him. You know what I mean? So it's different. It's like, you know, a manager can always kind of prefer somebody, things like that. And a manager can always say, look, I think we need to do a bit more, prioritize a bit more money to this area. It's a bigger problem than I thought, and that's okay. But I wouldn't paint it as a disagreement. I think it's slight difference in perhaps in priorities, but I don't think they're even on a different page. I believe they're on the same page. Because Amorim likes Delap too, and as someone pointed out, yeah, Anonymous, I heard that story. Maybe it's true. That that they would take Delap. He would have taken Delap at Sporting. So it's not like he doesn't like him. I don't know. I think they're good. I think it's just like maybe Gyökeres could be better. That's all. But it's harder to do. So don't worry about it. I think it's all okay. I think it's okay. You know, I don't think it's a big deal. I think, though, right now, if you were to ask me today, coach will identify the problem. Management will give him a list of profiles and they will together agree on the targets. Exactly. But also how the budget should be spread out. And a manager could be looking and saying, I would prefer we spend a bit more here. I don't think they're on a different page. I really don't. I think they're on the same page. And I think there's a good chance we get Delap. But if we win Wednesday, that might change. That really, really could change. Serious change. This is what I think, if you were to look at today, what is feasible would be their ideal team should we get Champions League. This is what I think is I think this is a seriously feasible team. I'm not saying it's that they can't even do more, but I think for next season, this is a feasible team for what we could do. It would require Champions League, and it would require at least one significant sale to make it happen. I think that the obvious hole that we would want to fill next season is to upgrade the midfield and to upgrade the center backs, right? Because Heaven is young, Maguire is old. We're going to need more center backs. I don't know that we could do all of that next season, this summer. I don't think we could do all of that this season, this summer. But look, it's not perfect. I'm just saying there are obvious things then to address the next season. You need center backs. You need more in the midfield as well. No doubt about that. But yeah, I think that it's a reasonable team. If you didn't sell Garnacho, though, but you did get hold on. I'll just give you the example. Like if you didn't sell Garnacho and you did get Champions League, let's say, then I think it would look more like this, right? I think it would look more like this next season. If we got Champions League and we didn't sell Garnacho. I didn't list Lissandro. He'll obviously be there, but he might not be back till January. He'll not be back till January. So, if you didn't sell Garnacho, I don't think you get that other 10. You run with what you've got. You still have Højlund. Maybe he'd be out on loan. You might have Harry Amas in here. We don't know yet. Between him and Diego Leon. I don't think long-term Mazraoui would be necessarily the starter, but it could easily be, Euro with Mazraoui starting on the other side. You have a unit here of players you can mix and match from the center backs, but we obviously do need more center backs, right? I do for sure think we need to sign a center back sooner rather than later, but I think it'll be a next summer priority. You always put Euro at right center back, but he's a left center back. I understand that, but I'm not sure that that's necessarily the case. Like if Lissandro was healthy, what would be our back three? It would probably be Lissandro, Maguire, and Euro today. I'm just saying, like, what the point is that I think Lenny can play both sides, but Mazraoui, like, I don't think it's that simple, but I'm not super worried about the sides. It doesn't matter to me. I think that, again, if you sold Garnacho, you'd be going for, like, Mbumo or Mastantuono on this side. So, we will see. We will see. Yeah, we'll see. But no, I think that this is the likely direction of travel this summer, something similar to this. Yeah, that's all. And if we don't get Champions League, then it's probably Delap. And if we don't get Champions League, we probably have to sell to get Ederson. But otherwise, you know, like this is the non-Champions League team, right? It's probably something like this with a sale in there. Other CM's targets, we don't know. I don't, frankly, I don't know. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's Anton Stack or something like that, but he's just another 6, so maybe that means you go Stack and Casemiro and Ugarte and Menu as the 8s. That's also possible because Ugarte is a bit flexible in that respect. That might be a cheaper option, right? You might go Stack and Ugarte. Could be. That's the only other link we've even had, frankly. Is this yeah, I do mean on top of Rashford, Sancho, and Antony, because I think that it's already considered that they're going to be going. I don't know that we'll make much from a Rashford sale. Chris Rigg cooled off. Yeah, because the price they're kind of looking at is crazy expensive. And Joe Bellingham's headed to Dortmund, which wasn't a surprise to us particularly. I've never really considered that we'd probably get him. But Joe Bellingham is like, Dortmund are pushing to sign him like tomorrow, per Dortmund's tier 1s. So I think that, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what other midfield targets we truly have in that case. But I think that like this is your non-Champions League team that we could pull off still. A big sale of Alvaro does oh, did he play it down? Maybe he was the one who linked us in the first place, but maybe he played it down. I do think a big sale of Alvaro does something for us. I think a big sale of Alvaro does do something for us. Maybe we'll move on to one of the other names like I've had on my list, Hayden Hackney, somebody that we've been watching for a while. Maybe they would be an option too. Maybe he would be an option, but I don't know. But yeah, those are bonuses. Alvaro sell-on clause, if Greenwood moves, getting there, those would be bonuses that would allow us to do more. But I think this is a realistic, yeah, I think this is a realistic team, for sure. Yeah, I think this is a realistic team that we could be running out next summer. Next year rather. And then again, following that, the answer would be, what do we do next? Well, that's clear to me, because then what would I do the next summer? I would go like here's the ideal scenario to me. This is my perfect world. Okay, right now that we win Europa League, we get Gyökeres in. Then the next summer, we buy Wharton, and we replace Maguire. I don't know. I'm just gonna use a name that I really like. That happens to be a former player for Ruben Amorim. That would be like my ideal world. Is that in the next summer we go for Wharton and someone like Delap, who's really good, really really good. That would be like my opinion of what I would like to see United try to do. And then you can judge, how does Dorgu do by then, things like that as well, right? But I think that would be like your 2-summer plan to improve the team. Again, then you'd see how Garnacho goes. You might be able to sell and get another forward in, something like that. Why not Diomande? Because I don't think Diomande is very good. Diomande is a mistake waiting to happen, and I hope it's not us. I've watched enough Sporting. I don't think we should sign Diomande. A lot of errors. Every time there's an error in Sporting's back line, it's him. He's like that guy. I would avoid heavily. Delap is much better. Is a much better player. I just would not. Inacio's a good left-sided center back. I also wouldn't sign him, because I just don't think he's fast enough. I don't think he's physical enough for the wide center back positions. But yeah, and then again, like I said, you would sell Garnacho and get somebody else in here, who could be your long-term Bruno replacement potentially. So I see the plan. I see the vision over 2 years, I see the vision. I see the 2-summer vision to get us back to the top. If we had this team next summer and some of these players worked out well, to me, this is a team that starts to really be it. That starts to really compete at the highest levels. That starts to do some amazing things, and can be there. But yeah, in one summer, in one summer, if we win Europa League, I think we'll go for something like this. I think this is the direction that we're heading. And I'll be honest with you guys, I really am leaning towards keeping Casemiro. I think he's a useful, valuable player, and I've definitely more leaned towards having some more experienced players in the team and the value of it. I really have. Maybe we go for Braithwaite as well as the guy next year. Could well be. I don't think we're going to get Turkey. I mean, there's a video of Ruben Amorim saying we're not signing him. Have you guys seen that? He literally said it's impossible. And I don't think that's like a lie. Do you guys remember that? Did you see that? He said that. I mean, I'm taking him at face value. We've had no real links to him in recent months. I've not heard a thing about us signing Turkey. And then Ruben Amorim said no. I'm just taking it at face value. He didn't have to comment on it. Gyökeres was mentioned. He didn't say anything. But he said no. He said impossible to Turkey. It's a weird one. I am still very confused by the whole Turkey business. I don't know if you guys are, but I'm still confused. Because it's like... I don't know. People don't seem to be like... I don't know. It's a weird one. I don't know. I know his stats are amazing. He could be the best player. I just don't get it. But everybody's sort of avoiding him, and he's available for very cheap. Maybe it's speed, maybe it's pace, maybe it's physicality. There must be some red flag that we all don't get, and that's why there's the experts. But yeah, after Cunha, the most likely is Gyökeres or Delap. One or the other is going to happen. I'm fairly certain of that, and then we'll move on from that. I know, Nick. I know people think Ederson is mid, but it is what it is. A lot of people don't rate Ederson. Like I covered in the beginning, I'm always going to go against certain things that people say. Because I think people don't get it. But it's fine. I could be wrong too. I never claim to be right about everything, but I do believe I understand it. That's why I had Ederson on my list as the number one partner for the midfield, because I think I get it. And I think he's a very good player, and I really don't know why he is underrated to that level by some people. But no, I do know why, because the hype goes to these aesthetic first phase ball-playing midfielders. That's what all the hype is in today's world on midfielders, right? That's what everybody wants. That's what everybody's clamoring for, is these smooth, aesthetic, ball-playing, deep midfielder, play dictators. I get it. I understand. But not everybody uses those types of midfielders. Not every team plays with those types of midfielders. I'm very interested to see Arsenal get on with Zubamendi instead of Partey, going from one to another and changing the way that they play. I'm very interested to see that. I get it. Deep line playmaker, sure. But we have a manager that doesn't use that. I mean, I don't know. Aslani and Fratesi are good. They play in a 3-5-2. Okay. I don't know enough about them, frankly. But, like when I was pointing out against Chelsea, you guys saw the first 30 minutes. It wasn't the midfield that progressed the ball well. When it was working, it was the center backs. That's the system at its peak, is the center backs line breaking passes to the tens. It's which I think matches this team quite well. It's these tens dropping in and the center backs hitting the line breaking passes to them. That's what worked. That's what worked against Chelsea. That's the thing that we saw being effective. Even with Casemiro and Bruno in that team, I think it was, they weren't progressing the ball in that first 30 minutes. They weren't being deep line playmakers. It was the center backs. It was the line breaking passes from the center backs stepping up, slapping the ball out wide or up to the tens. They were hitting the ball. A lot of passes were going up to the tens in that game. That's Amorim in, Amorim ball in its best, is those center backs doing that with the tens dropping in. That's how it works. I've said that all season. The progression comes from the center backs. Why we haven't seen more of it, I'm not sure. Maybe it's because usually one of our tens is jumping up high, but that's what he wants. That's what he's wanted all year. So we will see. Yeah, we will see. But anyway, I think the plan is clear anyways. All right. I'm going to end it there. I appreciate you all. Thank you for hanging out with me. The opposition always gives you space at wide center back. That's why Amorim. Yeah, I agree. They generally have that angle. And when the 10s drop in to make almost a box midfield and you get that extra line of like 6, you always have an angle. And that's the pass. You saw how Dorgu was like wide open all the time because the 10s were dropping in and dragging defenders. It was easy to hit the wing backs, and it was easy to hit the 10s if they defended the wing backs, and it made more. But look, it's 3:40 here. I got to end my day. We'll be live tomorrow. Don't worry about it. We'll be live tomorrow afternoon. We'll hang out again. Decent progress. Things are coming together. Things are working. Things are lining up. Quite happy. Yeah, please drop a like before you leave. Appreciate everybody who joins the members. We will definitely have another members video this week. But otherwise, we're hanging out one more day after today till the final. Can you believe it? Oh, terrified. But it's been a good distraction. Thank you all for hanging out with me. Obviously, big summer to come, big game to come. Good news on Cunha. It'll feel really good to have a couple deals lined up and all set. Thank you guys. Appreciate you all. I've enjoyed talking to you. Have a good rest of your day, everybody. Means a lot. Thank you very much. Have a good one, everyone. See you later. Goodbye.